Hi everyone, my name's Simon Galbraith. I'm the CEO and one of the two co-founders of Redgate. Welcome to SQL in the City 2017. Really excited to have you here. We think there's going to be about 2,500 people logging on over the day, which will be another record for us. We're really excited about how SQL in the City has grown from being a tiny little event in London to something where we're getting thousands of people coming along, and how it's beginning to help shape the industry. So we're really, really pleased about how it's going, and thank you for being part of it. I hope you really dive in and make it a good day. Speakers love it when people are commenting online, so just get in there, start talking, take part. The more you put in, the more you're going to get out. Now, those of you who came along in 2015 will remember we talked about Troy Hunt's website, Have I Been Pwned? This is a website that basically shows who's had data breaches on them, and you can go and put your name into it. If you just Google Troy Hunt, you'll find it straight away. We discussed the data breach at Ashley Madison, which is a website for people having extramarital affairs. So hardly a website to be proud of, but they'd had this data breach and it destroyed a $1 billion company. Now, Ashley Madison is a uniquely vulnerable company to data breach. It's probably got the most private of all data you can just about on any website having. So it's not surprising that it was destroyed by a data breach, but we think it is sort of the canary in the coal mine. We said this at the time, we think this is coming. And 2 years on, I think it's worth talking about again, because what was a little thing with Ashley Madison, only $1 billion company, is now affecting proper, hefty companies, which are really affecting just about everyone on planet Earth. So, end of 2016, the details started coming out. Who's data breach? I say started coming out because it took a long time for them to finally reveal the horrible truth, which was that 3 billion people had been affected by a data breach. Half the planet's email was able to be read by hackers, my wife's included. This summer, Equifax, possibly the biggest data breach in history. This affected 145.5 million people in the United States, 44 million of us here in the United Kingdom, including me. It's been described by Ars Technica as possibly the worst data breach of all time. I think they're saying that, and I think we agree, because not only is it, it's sort of the most private data you can possibly imagine. No, it's possible to go and take that data and open a bank account, withdraw money. It's really just an absolute beautiful thing for fraudsters to have all that lovely data available to them. And the company that was supposed to be helping people get credit, helping companies manage their credit, unlocking the ability for people to borrow money, is now in the hot seat for destroying people's finances. I mean, what a disaster for Equifax. And then even that isn't the biggest story of the last year, because in the last year, of course, it's now been revealed that the Russian government used data breaches, used hacking to try and influence the American elections. And there's serious commentators who believe that that was one of the key factors in swinging the election. So the fact is that evildoers are using data breaches to divide our society as never before. You know, this is literally evil people are trying to harm us by doing this data. They're out to get us, using this as a weapon of war. And I'm saying this to all of you because you are data professionals. You are the people with the most skin in this game. You are the people protecting us, the rest of society, from these people who are out to do us harm. So you are in a far more holy mission than you were a couple of years ago of doing something truly righteous. And whether you succeed or fail will make the difference between the organizations you're in succeeding or being destroyed by such as the way that Equifax is going to be, or certainly Ashley Madison was. Now the thing is, if you're Jennifer Lawrence, you know, you get phished, someone breaks into your account, someone releases embarrassing photographs of you. It's a personal disaster, but it's not really Apple's problem. It's just one person, it's embarrassing. But if you're Equifax, it was the database. It was the database that was hacked. There's no way you can get 145 million records out there unless you got into the database. So the database is the thing that's really at the heart of what really matters as far as data protection and privacy. So yeah, sure, someone gets hold of some email document, someone gets some photo. Those are like little specks of sand, and the beach is the database. We all know that, and that's why we're talking about it, and that's why people like you are seeing this as an increasingly big concern. Now, the thing that's happening is that politicians are beginning to wake up to the fact that this is a real thing that's going to affect voters. I think the fact that the US election was influenced, or at least claimed to be influenced by data breaches, means that politicians are now taking this super, super seriously. And EU, UK, even the American government is now seriously bringing forward legislation for this. And this is despite the fact that the US government is probably the most anti-legislation of any government in recent memory. So what's happening? GDPR is the really big one that's coming through, coming in May. This applies to anyone who is processing EU citizens' data. So the fact that you're based in America or based in the UK, as soon as you've got some customers in the EU, which most of us do if once you're a company of any sort of scale, you are going to be affected by GDPR. I was over visiting Scott Guthrie in Microsoft in November, and he told me that it was one of the biggest projects Microsoft had done in some time, making Microsoft itself GDPR compliant, let alone making sure its technology serves other people to do it. Second thing it does is it establishes the expectation that data privacy has to be built into the products. It's not enough just to sort of say it's okay. You've got to be able to demonstrate it's been designed in. And then finally, the penalties are absolutely enormous. The penalty for against GDPR is 4% of the global revenue of the company, or 20 million euros, whichever is more, which is again an absolutely terrifying prospect. A company like Redgate would probably break it having to pay a 20 million euro fine, or certainly set us back very significantly. Now, I don't know whether those political fines, whether government fines are going to be at that level really in reality, or whether the class action law suit, such as the one that Equifax has had launched against it, the largest class action law suit ever, or whether just the fact that all your customers will abandon you, like it happened with Ashley Madison. I'm not sure which of those three things is going to be the thing that affects you most, but those are big factors that no company can afford to ignore. And Redgate sees itself in two ways. One is we are going to have ourselves to really get in and get ourselves compliant and work even harder to make sure that's the case. And secondly, we see ourselves as providing some of the really really valuable tools to help companies protect their data better in the area of the database. So Redgate is a database tooling company, and we see ourselves really helping people keeping their database safe. Specifically, we think it's the development database where the real action lies from a process point of view. We think that most people have got their database, their production database, behind a firewall, well locked down, really well understood who's got access to it and who's going to do what to it. But then as it comes over that firewall into the company, you get hundreds, maybe even thousands of copies of production data spread across the company, and all that data needs to be kept safe too. What's more, it needs to be used in ways that is respectful of the people who gave you the data in the first place. So for a lot of people, they've been coming with us on this journey to database DevOps, something which we've been talking about for a few years now, and many companies are now getting far better at the DevOps way of doing things. And the question is, does DevOps, this idea of making lots of small changes, making everything reliable and process, how does that fit with data protection? And I think the thing that we've been wrestling with is, are we helping people or are we making it worse? So earlier this month, we surveyed 500 companies and asked them, okay, are you doing DevOps, and how is it going with your data protection strategy? And we were really, maybe not even surprised, but we were certainly delighted by the results. What the results showed is that if you have embraced DevOps, you are twice as likely to have had a successful data protection initiative than if you haven't. So companies are both more likely, if they're doing DevOps, and more likely to succeed if they're doing DevOps. So it's both easier to start and also easier to succeed at doing it if you've embraced DevOps. So that's despite the fact it's sort of contradictory. So the contradiction is DevOps says use realistic data, make lots of changes. So therefore, surely this is a nightmare. There's more stuff out there that could go wrong. However, what really seems to happen is you've understood your process, it's repeatable, it's reliable, you've got instrumentation over it, you've got the whole thing automated. Adding some extra steps to protect the development data is a lot easier than starting from a mess where you don't really have understood processes. So we think that that's a really, well, we're really delighted that we've got a great story, that if you're doing DevOps, which we've been really promoting, you're in a stronger position to do data privacy, and what's more, we're hopeful that we'll be able to cover the whole piece of ground. There's something important to remember, though. It's not just important not to be able to breach data. That's obviously the most important thing. But from the point of view of compliance, it's important to demonstrate that you are keeping the data safe. And it's far harder to do that without tooling, because you've got to show that how does this process work to an auditor or to someone who's responsible for compliance. We think that when you've got good tooling in place, it's far easier for you to demonstrate that it's safer. We think it's easier to be safer, but it's certainly far easier to demonstrate that you're safer. So what is Redgate going to be doing to contribute to this? Well, we've got a whole suite of tools coming out which are really the aim to help people keep their data safer. And I guess the fundamental starting building block for this is a tool which is called SQL Data Masker. This basically helps you take a database, keep the integrity of the data, but to find ways of obscuring or masking the data that's private. So for example, someone's name or national security number or their date of birth or their sexual preferences or whatever it is, it's something people might want to keep private that would otherwise be public. So by using Data Masker, we think it's far easier for people to make the data in that thing both useful in a DevOps sense, but also private and safe in a data protection sense. That's going to be integrated with our product SQL Clone, which helps you provision databases. So we're hoping we're going to have a provisioning environment, so you can basically provision databases, maybe even one per branch in your source code. But that provisioned database will be safe, and not if it does get launched in the wild, it's not going to suddenly embarrass the company or break the company. Those of you who are watching carefully, Richard McCaskill's talk will see a really exciting new tool we've got called SQL State Manager. That's going to be in some sort of micro preview, so I'm really hopeful that Richard gets out there and shows you what it's all about. This is really how do you discover the data in the databases you've got, and how do you map where the private data might be, and how do you keep track of it over time. We think that's going to be a really important part of people's arsenal, really understanding where their data is and what it's doing. I can't give the game away completely because some of these products aren't launched. There's going to be other products coming out early next year. I urge you to stay on Redgate's newsletters, come back to our website and really see what's going on, because we're going to be launching a whole lot of other stuff, not all of which we can talk about today because some of it's under embargoes and so on. But on top of that, we've got a whole series of tools, of changes to our existing tools to make our DevOps story work better and to make our data protection stories work better, right across from compare and prompt monitoring, provisioning, just database DevOps across the board. We're really looking to strengthen those stories really well. So I'd like to end on a slightly personal note. Back in 2013, I went to various events at Microsoft, and I heard this fairly consistent message, which is basically the DBA is a dinosaur. He's dead in a couple of years' time. We don't need DBAs anymore. We're just going to have automation and developers doing everything that DBAs do right now. DBAs are basically doomed. And that was something that we felt very uncomfortable about as a company, because DBAs are a really important part of our world, and that DBAs are almost the heart of our customer base. We actually have more developers as part of our customer base, but in terms of like the people that we've really seek to help are DBAs. And we felt a bit strange about hearing how they were doomed and how they're all going to be automated away. Now, I can't predict what's happening with job titles, but I can say that no one seems to be talking about the DBA going away. I think we know that keeping the data safe is becoming an increasingly important thing for companies to do, and the person who's responsible for that is an even more important person than they were 5 years ago. Like I said at the start, I think it's literally a holy duty to protect companies and other organizations' data from people literally out to ruin them just for the sake of it. So I think that you've got an even more important job than in the past, and I think it's really exciting that those people in the profession can see a really great and exciting and interesting career ahead of them, and those joining the profession have got such a big journey to go on, and there's such interesting work ahead of them. And I hope that you see Redgate as a great partner with you in that, both in providing education like we're doing today, but also in providing technology that you can implement that makes your lives better and make your company's data safer, make it easier to making changes to databases, easier to launch applications which rely on data. So my message to all of you is like, hold in there. It's a really exciting time. I really can't imagine there's been a better time to be a DBA than it is right today, right at this very moment. I hope you have a great day learning from people at Redgate. Like I said earlier, really do contribute, and I hope it's a real big success for you. So thanks from me, and goodbye.